Hello, everybody. I think we're live. Welcome to this amazing panel. My name is Sarah Petrie, and I'm the founder of Forever Young Adult, which is a website for YA readers who are, as I like to say, a little less Y and a bit more A. Before I introduce our fabulous authors, just two housekeeping things for y'all. First, we will be taking questions near the end from you guys in the audience. There's a Q&A box, so I think it's on your right side of the screen, so feel free to start adding questions whenever you want, and we'll start asking them probably at about 5:20 Central Time. Second thing is that I hope you all will support the festival and these writers by purchasing their books. You can do so via the festival website and purchase them from Nowhere Bookshop, which is an independent bookstore, and y'all know we got to support our indies. So that's done. Let's chat. Hello.
Hi.
So I am so happy to be here with y'all, and I feel like on some level no introduction is necessary, but at the same time, you all have new books either that are just out or coming out. So I kind of wanted to start with, if you don't mind, Adam, you can go first, just giving us a feel for your latest release. Maybe folks have read it, maybe they haven't. What should they know?
Cool. Hi, I'm Adam Silvera. If you see an email under my name, that is not my email. It was designed specifically for this panel, so feel free to use it if you have like some diary thoughts that you need to get off your chest, but like I will not see that, just FYI. This was not, I mean, it's some weird mistake that happened, it's a glitch. But anyway, my latest release is Infinity Reaper, which is the sequel to Infinity Sun. They're shiny. Also, I'm sorry that my like laptop filter is really weird. It's really gloomy.
You look great. You look great.
And I look better, is my point. But yeah, this is my fantasy series, and it takes place in an alternate New York where magic is real and explores what happens when one brother gets magical powers and becomes the chosen one, and the other one doesn't and becomes really jealous. And there's phoenixes, there's a queer love triangle as the series progresses. There's 4 points of view. There's a really cute shapeshifter. And yeah, I super love it.
As do a lot of us. Yes, great. All right, and Nicola, how about you? What do you have coming out?
So I am Nicola Yoon. Adam Silvera lives down the street from me. And it's funny because like he's in his house and I'm in Palm Springs, but we will see each other on Sunday.
Exactly. Excited.
Like for like a front yard meet and greet. Anyway, so I have a new book coming out on June 1st. It's called Instructions for Dancing. And this is an advanced sort of bound copy of it. And it's about a girl named Evie who gets the ability to see people's full relationships. So she sees the beginning, middle, and end. She sees how they begin and their tragic endings. And then, of course, armed with that knowledge, she meets a super cute, hot rock star boy. And so she has to deal with that. She has to deal with knowing that relationships begin and also end. That's it.
I'm sold on all of this. Before we get into it, since you guys are neighbors, have you ever like borrowed sugar or done like real neighborly thing?
I've been picking up Nikki's packages while she's away.
That's very nice.
I'm a gentleman, and but yeah, I'm
like he's Uncle Adam to my kids, so like they have video chats and watch cartoons there, so that I can like not pay attention to my kid for like 5 minutes.
Which is fun, and I mean, we used to like be able, like pre-pandemic, like obviously like we would hang out at Nikki's house and just like, oh cool, let me come over and drop off for you guys, and it's like, oh come in, and then we're like hanging out, and then it's like midnight, which is lovely. But we are, I just got fully vaccinated a couple hours ago, so we will be able to like hug soon for the first time in over a year. Just really exciting.
Like, it's 2 weeks for my second shot on Tuesday, and I seriously might go out and kiss strangers if they're fully complicated.
I'm
Lucky
gonna lick
stranger.
movie theater seats. Yeah.
Wait, what'd you-
Lick movie theater seats is my thing. That's the first thing I'm doing. When I'm to a movie theater, I'm gonna lick the seats. So
Sounds great. I also feel like this neighbor situation is like a sitcom I would totally watch, as would I think many people. So
the
if
best
you guys
part
ever need
is, like, sorry, just because when I moved to this like we've always been in the same neighborhood, but like when I moved to my most recent building, I had asked Nikki like, "Oh, are you guys like driving over?" And she was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "What?" She's like, "You're literally up the block." I had no idea that I was that close to them, and then so I like go to the corner and I see them like walking up, and it was the best.
far from his building. I mean, that is how close we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know when they're home or not.
That is like the dream, though. You know, it's like I feel like from watching Friends growing up, it's like, of course you're going to live across the hall from your best friends. Like, of course.
It really is, because I'll be walking my dog and I'll bump into them while they're out on like a family walk, and it's like, hey guys, you know. So it's the closest I've had to that like suburban lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we should talk about books since it's a book festival. So Adam, let me start with you. So, you know, as you said, this is a fantasy series, and the first book, Infinity Sun, was your first fantasy book that you wrote and published. And so obviously the second one has just come out. And one of the things I think is so interesting is in all of your books that you've published so far, you know, you never shy away from examining like serious topics or, you know, challenging themes. And yet, you know, with this fantasy book, you're still doing that. Just because it's fantasy doesn't mean you're shying away from real life challenges. And so do you feel like, is it easier or more difficult to examine real life challenges through the lens of fantasy or contemporary?
I don't know that I would say that like one is like more challenging than the other, because I think at the root of like everything that I do, so much of it feels very therapeutic. You know, we just went through like a really traumatizing presidential administration that like was just completely disastrous for this country, right? And just sort of like examining, you know, like how those particular like players who were like involved like got into power and everything, like that's, you know, I'm writing about like an election happening in the fantasy series, which, fun fact, the magical candidate, her name is Nicola Sunstar, which is based on Nikki Yoon, who wrote the Star. And so I had to give Nikki a spoiler for something that happens in book 3, like to kind of like get like the permission to really use the name. She's like, "What's going to happen to this character?" And so I told her everything. But no, but truly, it's like, I mean, I turned 31 in a couple months, and you know, but the first time I ever got to vote was for Obama's first term, and then my second vote got to be for Obama's second term, and then my third vote was for Hillary Clinton, and that obviously did not go our way. But so it was really the first time that I feel like I was like a really super conscious adult, sort of really participating in the election and not being so passive about these things, and the responsibility that we have as like adults and privileged people in general. But while I'm processing all that, I started including it in this fantasy world, which is very adjacent to our world anyway. And it's been really interesting. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's like a debate in the second book that I literally rewatched the Hillary Trump trilogy for those debates to prepare for writing those scenes. And it was really uncomfortable, you know, because you're seeing all these people saying that, oh yeah, Trump really just like, there's no way he's gonna be president now. And I'm just like, oh my God. But then from a fantasy lens, it becomes more interesting because I'm like, how can I make this even more challenging? So you have a shapeshifter involved, and it takes fake news to like a whole new level.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And, you know, so Infinity Sun, as we said, you know, was your first fantasy novel, and now this is your first series, right? Like, and so I imagine, you know, I know some authors don't read reviews, etc., but I'm sure you're seeing feedback on some level from your fans and your readers on, you know, the stories as they come out through the books. Has that impacted your process at all? And like, what is it like to, kind of be enmeshed in this world for so long versus, your previous books where it's like, you write the book and it's standalone and, you move on.
I mean, I think even with the standalones, you're still sort of paying attention whether you want to or not as to like what the reception is, because there are some really like valuable things that you can even learn about like your process, right? I think one of the most important skills of being an author is being able to sort of identify what feedback you think could be beneficial to your story and your craft and what doesn't, right? Like sometimes it really is, and most cases not, like a lot of criticism tends to just be noise that absolutely like will not aid you as a writer. You're getting people reading your book saying like, this is how I would have written it essentially, right? And it's like, cool, well, you didn't write the book, go write your own book. Like I'm looking forward to reading it. Like but there have been many times even with my standalones where I'm like, interesting, and it completely improves all my other stories. But for this series, it was really difficult because there was a lot of there were like more negative reviews like at the front end for Infinity Son than there were positive ones, and that was really hard for me to then like go into revising the sequel, because I'm just sort of like, I felt like my instincts had failed me to sort of produce something that was going to like please the masses or whatever. And I actually do think that in a lot of ways my voice got lost with Infinity Son because I kept bringing outsider voices into my process, my creative process. And I think with Infinity Reaper, that book feels more truly authentically Adam than I think Infinity Son got to be. Like I love Infinity Son. Like I'm really proud of that book. It doesn't hold a candle compared to Infinity Reaper and like the pride I feel with that book. So the feedback's hard, but I also know that I'm going to end the series the way I've always planned on ending the series, and no one's going to be able to like influence me away from that.
Yeah, and that's so important, because I think about like, I mean, shifting slightly, but when I think about TV, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, like when the internet was really starting up, I've read interviews with creators like Rob Thomas and Veronica Mars, and he looking back was like, I think we were too influenced, by the feedback that we got because we cared so much about what the fans thought. And so it's definitely a line.
Yeah, and it's an impossible task too. Like you cannot and will not please anybody, especially, I'm writing a love triangle right now. Like that means if I do my job right, 50% of the readers are going to be pissed,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Or if I do my job really wrong, 100% of them are, and yeah, like if someone doesn't make a choice, people are not going to be happy, but yeah, I mean, and that can be really difficult. And, that stuff definitely like, weighs on you as you're writing. But that's why like I always have to come back to what is the book that I am going to be the most proud of, because I am the only person who I actually have control over pleasing. I have literally zero mind control and influence over anyone else like beyond me. Like if I am happy, then that is the victory. If you happen to also be happy, that is another victory, right? But like I cannot control that. That is like completely outside my control. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think
important to know.
What's interesting about reviews too, that we always talk about the bad ones, but I actually think that the good ones aren't particularly good for you either, right? I mean, and I don't like the industry reviews because that's just the job. You have to read those. Like those are there, and you just got to read them, and hopefully they're good, great, wonderful. But like if we're talking about a platform like Goodreads, it's cliche to say that that platform is for readers and not for authors. And so unlike Adam, I totally stay away from Goodreads. It's like I just cannot take. But for my first book, I didn't stay away from it, and I do think that the good reviews aren't especially helpful for your art either, right? Because when you read something good, your instinct for the next book is to just try to replicate that because, oh my God, people love this, right? And if you read something terrible, right, your instinct is like, oh, I should never do that again because everyone hates this, right? And so then you're sort of trapped as an artist when what you really need to do is the thing that you should do to make yourself happy, like Adam was saying. So like sort of the extremely good and the extremely bad ones, they're equally sort of, they're bad for you in different ways, right? Because your job is right.
Yeah.
Right. But your job, I mean, as an artist is to tell the truth. And you can't do that with like other people's voices in your head so much. Everyone says writing is a very solitary process. Book publishing is very public, but writing is just you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, Nicola, before we move on to a few questions with your book, question for both of you guys. I was thinking about series and how, more and more there's not as many, there's still they still exist, but in YA there's not as many contemporary series as there are obviously like fantasy or dystopia or sci-fi. Do you guys think contemporary series will make a comeback, or have you ever thought about are you ever invested enough in a story that you would want to do a series in a contemporary universe?
Nikki, I'll kick that off to you first, especially since you're everything TikTok recently.
For those of us that missed it, what are you speaking of?
Yeah.
I did, first of all, I'm on TikTok, which,
Woo!
What is going on with that? But I just made this what I thought was funny with a little puppet talking about, because the question I get asked the most is, am I going to write a sequel to Everything? And I cannot tell you how much the answer is no, never, and never will. But I made this TikTok and I thought I was being clear, but other people in the comments are like, wait, are you going to do it? You should do it. I was like, no, not the point of this TikTok.
Cancel this TikTok. It's over. I'm out.
And the thing I always say is that if I write a sequel, I have to break them up and put them through their paces again. And I don't want to. Maddie and Ollie are together. They're happy. Everything's good. But to your larger question, it depends on the story, right? I don't have anything else to say about Maddie and Ollie. For The Sun Is Also a Star, I actually think I might have other things to say. So I'm leaving that.
Heard it here first, y'all.
You have things to say. Say them.
But that would be a very difficult book. I mean, I have some thoughts, but it's going to be a pain in the butt to write. Once again, it just depends on the story that you're telling. And for my current book, I don't have anything else to say beyond the things I've said. But I like to think of them as a love trilogy anyway. It's this is what I think about love. Romantic love so far.
I'm now going to start hounding you for a proper Sun Is Also a Star trilogy. So you're only going to get away with this loosely titled trilogy for so long, where I now want the Before Sunrise through your phone, because it's thing. I do love Natasha and Daniel enough that I would read more books from their perspective, right? And to speak to this question as well, where I'm there are some contemporary characters who even as a reader I'm invested in, right? I mean, Becky Albertalli, of course, has her Simon verse, right, where every novel is narrated by a different character too, which is provides a really fresh lens every time, while still giving us more from our characters and everything. And we now have our What If It's Us sequel that publishes in December, and that's where it stops for us. It's just gonna be a duology now, I guess. But I would love to read more contemporary series, and because I feel it feels like something that we see more of in TV shows, right? Because when you think about it, the majority of TV shows are just contemporary stories, and we are following them season by season, right? And why aren't we doing that with books? Jenny Han did it with her trilogy and expanded from duology to trilogy to do it even. And, I'm just there is a market for it. And because, if you're invested in a character, you're invested in a character. It doesn't matter what the genre is. But we do place emphasis on fantasy stories and sci-fi stories and genre stories, being the ones that have the series. And I would love to read a character, be so invested in a character that I'll read 10 books of them. That would be really refreshing.
It would be great. But again, that's up to the writers, right? But I think about classics like Anne of Green Gables, and I felt like I got to grow up with Anne Shirley, reading the books as she grew up. I feel the same way about the Jessica Darling series by Megan McCafferty. We got to start with Jessica. I think she's a sophomore in high school, all the way through she's 25. Wow. And I think it's really neat to see that whole journey, in a character that you either identify with or you're just really invested in, that, you relate to, and they go through things that you go through because they're living in our reality, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, So now you guys have a homework that, encourage other writers, let's get this going. So Nicola, with Instructions for Dancing, your new book, upcoming book, I have to ask you a super obvious question, and I'm sorry because you're going to get asked this all the time. But in your book, Evie, the main character, ends up through some interesting circumstances taking ballroom dancing lessons. What is your experience with ballroom dancing? And so let's start there. What is your experience with ballroom dancing?
So I was never like a professional ballroom dancer or anything like that. But I took ballroom dancing before I got married. So before David and I got married. And then for this book, we took private ballroom dance lessons so that I could figure it out again because I had forgotten.
I was hoping you would say this. Okay, keep going. Sorry, keep going.
So we did two different. We did the bachata, which is sort of Latin inspired, and then we did the Argentine Tango, which Evie does quite a bit of. And the tango is awesome because it's very dramatic, right? Like all these big movements, and you have to look like you're in love and you're gonna die without love, and it's fantastic. And it's so good for putting on your this dramatic face and Dave and I had a ball, and our teacher thought we were insane, but it was fine. So yeah, that was the best research I think I've ever done for a book. Although for everything, I had to watch a lot of cute boys do parkour to figure out how to ride Ollie, and that was like an afternoon of watching French boys do parkour was good.
So tough, so tough. Sacrifices to make.
Yeah.
That's so great, and it makes me wish that, I guess since your book comes out in June, because I'm just picturing going to a book event where there's ballroom dancers everywhere, you can take lessons. Mostly because I want to do that.
I feel like I'm going to write that down and send that to my wonderful Random House team, because that would be really great. Like if we got the readers involved and maybe did a little lesson.
Yeah.
Because the book is not hard too. It's one of the easier dances. It's a lot of hip movements. You got to do this thing called Cuban motion, which you got to get your hips going.
Oh my God.
This is happening.
But I would do it for you.
Yes, you will.
I'll be there. Whether or not I'm invited, I'll be there.
Adam, talk with me.
Oh my God, yeah. Love it.
And so along those lines, Nicola, since I know you're also obviously a rom-com or romance fan. Were there any? Because when I read this book, especially at the beginning, all I could think about was one of my favorite dance movies, which is Strictly Ballroom, which I love. And that's when I saw that movie. I guess I was in high school, and that's kind of where I realized that ballroom dancing was a real thing, a real competitive.
Yeah.
Sport. I had no idea. So were there any movies that kind of served as inspiration for you as well, beyond just your actual ballroom dancing experience?
Strictly Ballroom was one of them. And then for this, I just watched a lot of Ballroom. But the dancing was just the vehicle, right? I just wanted to do something fun to get her sort of close to a boy physically, as well as taking this sort of leap, because, Evie's not the kind of person who would take a ballroom dance class unless forced to.
Right.
And so I love putting characters sort of outside of their comfort zones, right? Because that's when you see how people adapt and cope. You get to know a person a lot more when they're in a situation that they're not comfortable with than a situation where they are. And so I was I want to do something fun, and having date nights with my husband while we're dancing works for me. So that's why I put her there. But I love Strictly Ballroom and Dirty Dancing. The UK copy for this book is Dirty Dancing meets something else. And I was first of all, no one knows what Dirty Dancing is, because that was years ago.
I do have to say, there's a part in your book, this isn't a spoiler, but where one of the characters is talking about the movie Big. And I think it's X talking about it to Evie. And he's yeah, it's this really old movie. And she's I've never heard of it. And I'm Oh no.
It's true that these movies are old. No one knows. I had to do the whole thing. I was like, I'm just writing a synopsis right now.
Yeah, yeah. So one more question about your book before we move on to some questions for both of you guys again. Not to get too specific, but there's a character in this book who I am obsessed with. She's an instructor at the dance school, and her name is Fifi. Where did she come from? And do you know her in real life? Because I would like to be her friend.
I predict that everyone is going. Fifi was the most fun character I've ever written in my entire life. And, you know, Adam will agree with this because writing is hard, but like some days it's easy. And like she just came out of my head, fully formed. I could hear her in my head. She just said what she wanted. And I was just like, I'm fine. I'm writing it down, Fifi. You do you. And seriously, like writing is mostly miserable, but
Right.
he was easy, and I don't know why. She was great. She's like this out. She's a ballroom dance instructor. She's completely outrageous. She's from a vaguely Eastern European country that I never name, and she just will tell you, "You are a terrible dancer. Do better." Just doesn't care what you think about it, but
Nope.
she says it with love still, and with a ridiculous accent. She was fun to write. She's for real. She's just in my head.
She's
I
like
can't wait.
instant legend for me. I was like, yes. Well, that's great. So actually in both of y'all's, well, in your book, Nicola, and then the series, Adam, you kind of get to play around with some tropes. Like obviously, Adam, for you, there's, you know, a lot of influences like X-Men, you've said, and Harry Potter and different things. And Nicola, with your book, Evie, the protagonist, she's kind of a, well, former fan of romance novels and rom-coms. And I loved the section where she just lists classic romance guy characteristics. So, you know, and I think it's fun to see you guys sort of play with those, but are there still tropes that you enjoy as a writer or as a reader that you like still think are worth, you know, not just like tongue in cheek referencing, but actually like utilizing?
Adam, you go first.
Yeah, you catch your breath for a second. I mean, I really do love love triangles, you know, and being able to write one between three boys is really exciting for me, right? Because it gives me an opportunity to sort of like read about a love triangle that I didn't see when we were, you know, okay with love triangles 10 years ago, right? It was always, you know, whether it was contemporary or with like magical creatures or whatever, like it was always the ones that were sort of like, I mean, it was always a girl and two boys, right? Like I don't even know the love triangles that were about like a boy with two girls. Like I feel like if that is a love triangle, then like everyone's just calling that guy a dick, you know, in a way that like we don't, which I like, hey, look, there's a lot of like things that men get away with that women can't. So like it's okay if we lost the love triangle war with that one. But I'm not okay with the queer boys never having like their love triangles. Not never, and I mean like that we didn't get to participate in that at the same level in which everybody else did like 10 years ago, right? And also those love triangles were also like super white too. So like being able to write a love triangle right now that is 2/3 of it are boys of color is like really, you know, something I'm super proud of. And yeah, I'm just having so much fun with it. Like give me all the love triangles that are not just like the same white people, right? Even if the white person is a vampire and the white person, you know, I just like, you know, like I want updated love triangles. And yeah, I mean, it's certainly been super fun for me. Like I don't want to choose. Like, I mean, I know my choice, but I'm also honoring the character too when it comes time to write book 3.
Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love all the tropes, right? And I love picking them apart too. Like people sort of complain about love triangles sometimes, right? Like there's a lot of, but I love a good love triangle because it's really about the character choosing between like an old version of themselves and the future version of themselves, right? And so that's just a stand-in for that. So, I mean, the tropes always represent something else, something more complicated. I think I maybe want to write a fantasy one day, Mr. Silvera. So,
You know what people hate about contemporary authors transitioning to fantasy. We'll have that talk over wine, over Prosecco, excuse me.
Whatever. They could come over and like, don't read the book. You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think what else would I like to do? I think I would love to do a middle grade book. I have an idea for one. I want to write something for my little girl. She and I have been talking about one. You know, and it's, you know, the magic schools are always good, right? So like that's a trope, but whatever. I haven't done it yet. It'll be fun. We'll see.
Totally.
I'd read a magic school book by you for sure.
Thank you, Adam Silvera.
I got you. You got one sale. Me and your daughter, 2 sales. You got it. Your husband, he might just borrow your daughter's copy. So.
Why not? This cheap.
Yeah.
So I think I read, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys first met, you were on a We Need Diverse Books panel, I don't know. I don't remember years ago.
In January 2015.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Chicago. Snowstorm Central. Yeah.
And so one of the things that I think is so great about that is that, you know, both of you, you know, even I'm sure before that point, at that point, and then through now, you know, have continued to work to increase diversity in YA, amplify, you know, different voices. And I would love to hear you speak to, you know, recent efforts or what you think still needs, well, I guess it's not fair to say what still needs work because everything does, but, you know, like Nicola, I would love for you to share with our audience, you know, about your new imprint, which I think is super exciting, if you don't mind plugging it a little bit.
I will talk about this all day, let me tell you. So recently, my husband and I, David Yoon, who's also an author, started an imprint. It's called Joy Revolution. It's at Random House Children's Books. And, you know, first of all, like I pitched this idea to Random House, and they were amazing. Just like Barbara Marcus, who runs Random House Children's Books, is one of the best people in publishing, and she said yes, and we started this imprint, and the mission of the imprint is to publish these big swoony love stories with people of color as the main characters, written by people of color, and it's because when I was growing up, I didn't see many stories that weren't stories about pain or sort of racism and basically pain and racism. Like I want the happily ever after stories for, you know, for queer kids and for Black kids and for Asian kids, like the stories that sort of allow people the full measure of their humanity, right? Like I want the big kisses and the love triangle and the happily ever after, because not everything is pain, right? Like no one lives like that. I don't wake up every morning thinking about the struggle because I cannot. Like I can't give up my joy. It's only the one life, right? So I wake up in the morning thinking about coffee first, possibly a blueberry muffin second, right? I can't wake up. I mean, and obviously there's a struggle to be had, but it's not every day. And it's not fair to think that it's every day. And certainly not fair for every time you pick up a book as a person of color or a marginalized person to see stories only of pain and like have your stories exist only to teach a lesson, because it isn't true, first of all. And it isn't fair, right? Everyone gets to be, you know, a hero, and everyone gets to fall in love or contemplate love. As I say, everyone deserves the full measure of their humanity. So that is the mission of Joy Revolution. I could go on
so
for
exciting.
Stop now.
I mean,
It's
I
so
feel like
exciting.
you're going to offset all the sadness that I bring to all my readers. You're like, okay, we need to counter all of Adam's misery. We're going to do a imprint where like the door is like shut to him practically because like he is just traumatizing everyone. We need to
Yeah, if you write me a happy ending, you can publish all day at Joy Revolution.
Also, like my happy ending would be still not reflective of like the it wouldn't have all the joy that you would want. Like a happy ending in my book is like they lived, you know. Like some characters don't even get that, you know. So I think that one is still a bit of a lifetime away. I think before I can like submit to Joy Revolution, but. No, but I do love that so much, and I am like really hyped for all the titles that you guys are going to be releasing, and you guys have already like shared one that I'm like so hyped for. And yeah, for me, I have not started a publisher imprint yet.
What have you been doing?
You know, I adopted a dog, so that's been a lot, but I'm only going to get away with that excuse for so long. So maybe I'll take up an imprint in the next couple of weeks or something. You know, I'll hit up Harper.
Like secret projects is ridiculous. I can't keep up with them, and we're like friends.
No, and I mean, so like what I am doing is that I am like actively seeking to work with as many marginalized, specifically like queer people as possible, both like public and behind the scenes and everything. Like I've taken a lot of because I'm also like doing some TV work now too, and I'm just getting to know more and more people in that industry. From like every possible role, from like PAs to casting directors, even if we're not hiring them to like work on the shows that I'm developing and everything. I'm just like, no, I want to know, because when I am in power to like make more decisions like that, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna hit up this person, I'm gonna hit up this person. Oh, I know this person here and everything, and just getting more insight on like what everyone's experience has been. I speak with a lot of like queer authors in general, and I am very open with them about advances and stuff like that, because I'm very much of the belief that I'm like, nope, I don't care that like my stories might be seen for a fraction of the country. You're going to pay me what you pay straight people, straight white people specifically. Like I do not care. I'm no less valuable to the publisher just because my books might not seem completely accessible to the market. You know, there are some states that will not carry my book. There are some libraries that won't carry my books in their libraries or in their bookstores, whatever, certain districts within states, I should say. I don't want to like fully blanket state, eliminate an entire state, you know, but I'm aware of that. I'm like, I don't care. Then you need to create the demand for them to have to shelve me.
Let me just interrupt, because it is demand, right? I mean, first of all, Adam is like modest, but he's pioneering, right? I mean, like the books that Adam, like They Both Die at the End is the #1 YA book in all of America right now, right? I mean, it's amazing. Adam is like doing the work, and there obviously is an audience, right? I mean, many people have bought that book, and it's like 4 years later, however long. And sometimes it's hard to be the first, right? Like sort of at the front lines of doing some of the stuff, but you know, it's fine. Like, I mean, there is art making and there's sort of activism, and when they intersect, that's wonderful. But there is a market. Like the kids are reading.
And the thing that like puts us, you know, because again, and you know, since Nikki, of course, is the first, you know, on the bestseller list, period, and then to do it again, you know, and like that is a obviously phenomenal accomplishment. And what that has done from both of our respective spaces since publishing in 2015 is it's like showed publishing the demand for these stories. And you know, our books were also our debuts, amongst our other novels as well, were like very critically well received. Like we both got like so many star reviews and everything, you know, and like really showed that, hey, okay, cool, it's not just going to be like the white stories that like get all the attention and everything. And but through the success of our novels or whatever, like more authors have been able to break into the industry with not, you know, like total ease, obviously, but they've been able to point to our careers as markers of success and everything. And now you have publishers who comp their titles to Nicola Yoon and to Adam Silvera and everything. And it's like, cool, they are trying to, it is wild. And it's very flattering too, you know, but like we've inspired other people to also create their own books. And then those people are going to, you know, have a different intersection that neither Nikki and I have. And then they're going to inspire other people within their communities. And it's this like beautiful, like, it's like a very fun like domino like pan out that you get to sort of experience and everything. And much like we had authors who inspired us, and so yeah, I mean, like that is like, yes, I do not have an imprint yet, Nicola Yoon, but truly, even
like 10 TV shows coming out.
I know. But seriously, but even if like we didn't have any of those things, even if we didn't have TV shows, we didn't have imprints, if just by publishing our books, we have created opportunities for other authors. And, I know that's really special. And that's something that we'll be able to like probably take to our graves.
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. And I would love for this. I wish we had like hours, but we only have a few minutes left. So unfortunately, I'm going to shift quickly to some audience questions. But I thank you guys for everything that you've said.
We can rapid fire the audience questions too.
Yeah.
Well, I can, but
yeah. But seriously, thank you for both of you for those thoughts. Very important. All right. So I love this question. It is quick. This is from Kayla. What are y'all's go-to snacks when writing?
Kettle corn.
I'm cutting back on candy because like it hurts my teeth now because I'm old now. So lately it's been more like these cauliflower chips that I'm really liking. I know I'm also an annoying vegan, so there's that.
Yeah, I can't.
All right, this is from Alicia. I think I said this right. Sorry, Alicia. Did your stories go through a lot of changes before they were published?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I always say the first version of everything is trash. Like the 1 billionth version, which is the one that's on the shelf, is pretty good, right? I only have a career because I'm good at revising, not because I'm good at first drafting. So yeah.
I had a ghost in my first novel, which is not a fantasy. So a lot of things changed.
Yeah. This might be hard to answer quickly, so take your best stab. But Zinnia would like to know, what's the easiest, hardest thing about writing in general, or maybe about a specific book that you wrote?
I think for me, like it kind of ties into the previous question where revising can be really difficult, but it's also my favorite part because it is bringing me closer to the version of the story that I want it to be. And I feel like with the first draft, I have like, it's like write it wrong so you can like write it right later. And I love being in that space where you get to like write the book right after you've been able to identify the strengths and weaknesses from that previous draft. But it is still a lot of work, and a lot of like reconstruction can happen in that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always the doubt. I always start off really strong with the idea. I get to the sort of middle section, like the ocean of the middle, and there's all that doubt. I'm just convinced it's the worst story, and I am the worst writer, and no one cares, right? And then, so you sort of make through that, right? And then you get to the end, which I sometimes have in mind, and so you power through that. But the doubt in the middle is really difficult. And even though I know that doubt is part of the process of writing, it still is very painful, right? So, but if you're a writer, the person who's answering this question, just try to remember doubt is part of the process and just get through it. You can just get through. You can make it better, but you got to get to the end. So just suck it up to the doubt.
Yeah, solid advice. And so, before we leave, just one more question from me because I'm curious. So during the pandemic, a lot of people ended up just rereading books they love or rewatching shows or movies over and over again, just as sort of a comfort. So I was wondering if you guys had a book or movie or show that's like your kind of warm blanket that you revisited during the pandemic.
I reread Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey Mcquiston 3 times. I love that book.
3 times?
3 times. I love it. It's so fun. I'm trying to figure out how she did it. She's amazing. Book's amazing.
I just finally bought it. It's oh my god.
Read it, Adam. I'll come read it to you. For God.
What's up? Well, I love that. I love that even more. We'll do that. My comfort show, which I'm still watching, and it's like the worst comfort show, is Veep. And everyone's like, that show's so dark. And I'm like, I've had it on repeat. I go to bed to it every night. But I have recently started putting on a New Girl to like lighten things up. And what I reread during the pandemic was Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi in time for the finale that was released last spring. And that was like just 6 books like back to back. Like that was really fun. I love the journey. Again, give me more contemporary journeys. Nikki.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you to our audience for being here. And just a reminder, you guys, you can buy these books, so many great books, via the festival website. And obviously feel free to share on social media how great this panel was, but how great these authors are. And
Let us
again,
know who your favorite was, me or Nikki. Or Sarah, what triangle? I was like, let us know who your favorite was in the panel.
Panel triangle. All right, well, thank you guys so much. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.